Good morning, everybody. The Housing, Urban Development and Zoning Committee for March 8th, 2022 will be called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Cone. Alderman Coder.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Here.
Alderman Muhammad. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderwoman Evans.
Here.
Chairman Boyd.
Present.
5 present, you have quorum.
Alderman
Thank you.
Cone is present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Davis is present.
Thank you. 7 present, you have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of minutes for March the 1st and 3rd.
I move that we approve the minutes for the last 2 meetings.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad.
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Chairman Boyd.
Aye.
9 aye votes.
By your vote, you approved the minutes for March the 1st and March the 3rd. Today, we will have public input and talk about Board Bill number 82. We will not be taking a vote. We will not be amending the bill. We will pretty much have public input. I do want to say that I was very interested in allocating more than just the 39 million that we pretty much have left. Wasn't trying to do the whole 249 million that's forthcoming. I did receive a letter this morning from the mayor's office, and I would definitely respect the wishes of the mayor and slow down. It was not the intent to be in haste, but it is important that we continue to have conversation and we allocate these dollars. Now, it is my understanding that when the mayor put together the committee, they were talking about the ARPA funds, period, and the priorities for the city during that process. That was a very lengthy process that they engaged in. The Board of Aldermen felt pretty much left out of that process at the end of the day. And we know what's best for our constituents because we're in contact with them on a regular basis. So many of our colleagues, we have been having those conversations with our community in our ward meetings, and we will continue to have those conversations. I am committed to having more hearings while we're out of session. It is very important, it's very critical that allocation of these funds will be used to rebuild our distressed neighborhoods. That is a huge priority. I certainly respect the understandings of different departments have certain needs, and as long as they help us with our citizen services, that's great. But at the end of the day, we do have almost $1 billion budget that we go through every year. And so with that, I certainly want to spend most of this time listening to the public. I certainly hope that it's a representation of people across the whole city. And with that, I'll just go around and see if any committee members have any initial comments, and then I want to go right into public input. Okay, so let me start with Alderwoman Davis.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I don't have any additional comments. I think that was a very clear explanation of where we are. And I am cognizant of the fact that we all need to work together, take our time, make sure we make the decisions that are best for our constituency, as you have said. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alderman Cone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions per se. I just, I'm happy with your opening comments that we're going to take a little bit more time. Not planning on taking a vote today. Not that we were planning on taking a vote today initially anyway. This was just for public comments, but I think, the feedback that I've received from constituents just in the last, several days now has been, one, the board bill that's before us really is kind of a blank board bill. And so it's hard for them to develop comments and provide feedback on that. I've kind of been sharing where I think you're coming from is just soliciting ideas versus comments on a board bill. So this is more of like a brainstorming session of sorts. But, I do appreciate that we're going to be taking a little bit more time to examine these. I think you and I were texting last night. I've been ill the last few days, so it's been kind of hard for me to focus and work on things. But I look forward to the discussion today. And I did submit some suggestions and recommendations last night, most of which are based off of the recommendations from our city's capital committee and BPS. But prioritizing in particular, I think neighborhoods that need recreation for young people, focusing on things that we typically wouldn't have the opportunity to invest in through our normal budgeting process. And also, a lot of people are talking about the infrastructure dollars that are coming down from the federal government. But I think it's important to note those monies are going to be going in through East-West Gateway. They're not going to be coming directly into the city's coffers. And so East-West Gateway has a history of funding mostly highways and bridges. And so, projects that, like a rec center renovation would not typically be something that's funded through East-West Gateway. So those types of capital needs with respect to our city facilities, our recreation facilities, our equipment. I know I've brought up so many times over the last several years about street sweepers and tow trucks and things of that nature. Those are basic essentials and providing city services that we just regularly don't have an opportunity to maintain or replace. So, this is an opportunity, to address those types of concerns as well. But, we do have, I want to say it's 8 rec centers throughout the city that are in desperate need of improvements and pools as well. That St. Louis is one of the few major metropolitan areas, major cities in the country that offers free pools to our young people and families. And, I think, again, this is an opportunity where we might be able to focus spending on areas we otherwise wouldn't be able to. But appreciate that we're going to take a little bit more time to solicit those ideas, those feedback, opinions and whatnot, and put together a process to make sure that we're incorporating all of those ideas and concerns. Thanks.
You're welcome. Alderman Kotar.
Thank you, Chairman. No questions. I look forward to hearing what folks comment today, and I certainly sympathize and understand it's frustrating to try to comment on a bill that has a blank exhibit with no clear guidance on how we're going to spend these funds. So I look forward to the public's input, but do hope when we come back in the new session that we've got a better plan to work with the administration on making sure the priorities they want funded are included and the things that are important to the board and to our constituents are funded. I know everyone's got a lot of great ideas and for this money, but I to my colleague from the Alderman from the 25th, as he just mentioned, stuff like street sweepers and rec centers and that are city assets and equipment to fund essential city services, that's got to get looked at. While it's not the sexiest stuff, the most complaints we ultimately get are about crime and lack of city services. And to provide those, you need the equipment and the manpower. And some of these dollars give us an opportunity to do so. So I'm going to be listening closely today and look forward to continuing these discussions when we're back in session.
Okay, Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of ditto my colleagues prior to me. The only thing that I can add to it is I have been educating and empowering my community in the processes, because as everybody know, our communities were always left out of those discussions. And so now we have people that live in the North Quarter that actually have an input, and they're learning the processes. And so it's been for a while, even before we started on the first round, we were trying to make sure that people knew what the processes and what they actually could look at in regards to improvement in our communities. As Alderman Coulter and Alderman Shane said, was that in the nutshell, we cannot continue to keep nickel and diming our departments. And so that capital committee, they kind of came out with things to let people know the needs, because it's been neglected for so many years in regards to equipment, just the basic equipment for our staff to be safe and work in our communities. And so everybody has these big dreams about what's going on. And I read the letter from the administration in regards to the whole city. And that's fine, I agree with it. But as the North Quarter, they're constantly behind the 8 ball. Yeah, the whole city needs these services, but the North Quarter is behind it before we even get to that point. So I just hope that the people that are here, I want to hear that what they have to say. But these kind of meetings we have in our ward continuously, and we continuously invite people to give their input, because it is citizen driven. It is in the 27th ward. It is citizen driven. It is make sure that their voices are heard, because they have not been heard for so long. So, and it's funny because a lot of times they might say things that I might not even agree with them. But you know what? They have a right to their opinion, just like I have a right to mine. I can't tell them what's better for them and where they're at, just like nobody from somewhere else could tell us what's better for us. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for your introduction. I think it was powerful, and it let people know that we are listening to the constituents that are out here. So thank you.
Okay, Alderman Collins Muhammad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will not belabor any points that have already been said by my colleagues, but I do want to thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that throughout the last year and a half, as the city of St. Louis has been getting these installments from the federal government, I do think that the HUD's committee has been transparent and has been active in seeking public comment. So I want to thank you for your leadership on that. And I look forward to hearing what the members of the public have to say. And that's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Welcome. Alderwoman Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I pretty much echo my colleagues. I think I hear a lot of overlap on some of the potential uses for this money. So I think that's really nice. I really appreciate this opportunity to let folks come and express ideas. I see some folks from neighborhood organizations, as well as public employee representatives, which I really appreciate them attending. And I do think it's a little hard. I understand where you're coming from, but I do think it's a little hard to have public comment on this blank slate. I did not send any recommendations that are ward specific, as I found it really hard to make recommendations without any sort of parameters. And maybe we need to set some parameters on what we want to spend this money on, and kind of what maybe those, and how our percentage of the money that we're asking to make recommendations. I also think that this may be very unpopular, but I also think that we should not only hear from departments, hear from the mayor's office, hear from people, but it also might be important to really assess where everyone is at with their ward capital and what their planned expenses are, as some of us do fully fund our sidewalks, or myself, I'm planning on using a chunk of money for a federal grant for South Broadway. So that would maybe take away the need to fund paving at that point. So I think that looking at where we all are with our upcoming expenses and plans is important. I also think that the projects should possibly be a one and done type project, whether it's buying equipment, paving roads, sidewalks, or one constituent had a great idea, replacing lead water lines. That's also a one and done needed thing that we also might be receiving, or I think we will be receiving some federal dollars through our state government for. So that might be something where we can match our money with what's coming from the government, federal government, and make a huge impact there. I know that we're also going to be receiving funds for other things like unhoused, addiction services. So maybe I definitely think we need to slow it down, and maybe we do need to see where or what money we're receiving from the state government and how that's going to be allocated. We'll know really within a few months by the next session. So those are just my initial thoughts. Thank you very much for allowing everyone to come and give testimony.
Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Chairman Boyd. Like most folks have said, I'm glad we're slowing this process down. There is no rush to get this done before the end of session. It's not like, a lot of the other board bills on our calendar where we, need to get them done in the next few days here, really. I hope that as we move forward through this process, that members of the community get an additional time to give their input once we're looking at a more complete bill, because it would be pretty hard to give any meaningful feedback to what we're seeing right here. Also, I do have some concern, and as we've talked about, Chairman, it's probably the lawyer in me, but I do have some concern about allocating funds that we're not currently in possession of. It's come up a few times in discussions, so I have asked the city councilor for an opinion there, and we're supposed to get an opinion by the end of the week as to. I asked if other jurisdictions were allocating these funds before they were actually in receipt of them, just on the off chance that we don't get all the funds that we think we're going to get, and we've been, kind of counted our eggs before they counted our chickens before they've hatched. And I just got a text asking Chairman Boyd to just give a general update to I guess there's some folks who missed the top of the beginning of the meeting. So I guess whenever we wrap up, if you could just update folks as to the fact that we're not seeking a vote and things of that nature. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Evans.
Thank you, Chairman Boyd. I really don't have any questions, only to echo what my colleagues have said, and that I will also continue to listen to what my constituents, inputs towards spending this money.
I'll go ahead and recognize members that are not on the committee. I see Alderwoman Schweitzer has her hand up.
Thank you. Alderwoman Rice had her hand up first. I don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I want to be respectful of my,
Okay, I appreciate that. It's real light. So Alderwoman Rice, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about it. It's the the skin tone colored hand that blends into my wall back here. So
your background is white, so it kind of blends in.
I have that problem a lot, blending into that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. I also thank you for slowing down a little bit and getting some more input here. I am curious. So you said that we're not taking a vote today. I'm curious if you're imagining that Board Bill 82 will be allocating any money by the end of the week. If you could just clarify what you're doing there.
Good question. I do, but not the 200, not the second half,
okay,
but the remaining. The
Okay.
goal is to have a substitute tomorrow and talk about it on Thursday.
Okay, so the remaining 41 million-ish or somewhere in there, okay, is what you're thinking. And so, but we don't have any amendments or the committee substitute in front of folks now to be testifying on. So what we're asking for the public today is general ARPA recommendations.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Alderman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, and for letting me speak today. I am so excited to continue talking about allocating this money. It's such a great problem to have so much money to spend on our city and on services that our city offers and on the people who live here. I certainly think that infrastructure expenditures are incredibly important. Anything that helps support getting city services done. I hope that we're looking at the requests that are in the Citizen Service Bureau logs. I know that we all are looking at our sidewalks in the ward as the streets department works through getting that program going again. And with my conversation last week with the streets department, there are 240 open requests just in the 13th ward. That's $600,000 of sidewalk needs. There's $150,000 in the 13th ward capital account right now. And some of these requests go back to 2017, perhaps even earlier, that are still open. And so I know that if my ward has that issue, I'm guessing wards across the city do, and some probably have a lot even more. So I really hope that we're looking at the requests for services that have already been made by people all across the city over the last several years that haven't been fulfilled. I know refuse is waiting for an order of lids for dumpsters to come in, for example, and I have several dumpsters that I know of in the 13th that need to get replaced. And again, if it's in the 13th, it's everywhere. And I really look forward to making some big improvements in our city with these funds. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing from people today and looking at what everyone has already commented. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Let me comment just a little bit on that. The 50/50 sidewalk program is broke. Money is already allocated. We already have money in capital for that. The work is just not getting done. And that's probably a hearing that we need to have in the street department to figure out what the problem is. I do know an employee left and kind of left things in shambles, but that allocation of dollars is already there from our budget bill. So it's more of a personnel problem than a financial problem. So just wanted to kind of let you know that right there. All right, Alderman Stevens.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I could talk at length about sidewalks, and I will not, but
Thank you.
I will not, Chairman, but you know I get upset about my sidewalks. I just wanted to thank you for holding this public hearing and soliciting input from the public. I'm eager to support infrastructure. Of course, infrastructure. Alderwoman Martin from the 11th was singing to my very heart with what she spoke to. I'm eager for the opportunity to support at the board, additional support for the current personnel that we have, but also the arts. I see that we have Miss Vanessa Cooksey here with RAC today. I'm very excited to hear from her. But ultimately, Chairman, I want to recognize that we are in such a unique position, not only because of this absolute windfall of funding that is born from a tragic 3 years of pandemic and the whole Rams lawsuit, but I want to recognize that we are, as aldermen and alderwomen, in a position where we have to do this right. And when we do it right, and I trust that we will do it right, Chairman, but when we do it right, nobody will remember that we did it. And that is our ultimate goal, that we do it right and everyone forgets our names. If we do it wrong, remember, well, that Alderman Bill did X, Y, Z, and we're gonna, remember that. So I just want to acknowledge that. I mean, what a spot that we are in, what an opportunity and what an occasion that we are rising to. And I hope, dear colleagues, that while I will never forget our names, that the public at large may someday forget our names because we've done it right. And with that, Chairman Boyd, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't see any other members of the board with a hand up.
Excuse me. Alderwoman Howard.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alderwoman Howard, please.
I just have a question, and I'm a little late to the party here, and you may have already addressed this, but please indulge me here. Is there any sort of a comprehensive needs assessment being done to address the infrastructure needs or any of the needs that are addressed in the ARPA funding parameters?
Well, it's my understanding that there's been needs assessments done by BPS, and that's why the last board bill had a lot of allocation of capital money as well as ARPA funds to augment it to get some of that infrastructure improvements done.
Okay. Because I mean, we, being a city that was, has been around since 1700s, we have some antiquated infrastructure, and I think maybe we, and I don't know who has this information, but we need to proceed carefully. Ditto everything else that's been said. I won't belabor the issue. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. I want to thank my colleagues that did submit on behalf of their constituents some potential projects. It's very helpful. It's enlightening. I'll just give you a little summary of what I picked up from most of it. A lot of it is capital needs. Certainly traffic calming seems to be popular as well. And it's just interesting, depending on what part of the city is, what the priorities are. And so I'm going to open up to the public. I have a list of people speaking in favor and against, and I'm just going to go straight down the list, no matter what the position is. But what I do want to say, if you are speaking on behalf of an organization, because I have to swear you in, tell us your name, your position, and the organization and where your organization is, basically the address of your organization. If you are speaking on behalf of yourself, I'm going to ask you to state your name, the 100 block you live on, 1400 block of Ron Avenue, and take it from there. Okay, so those are the rules. Madam Clerk, can you watch the clock? Or do I need to do that? I'm willing.
I can do it.
Okay, so the first person up is Miss Vanessa Cooksey. Miss Cooksey, do you promise, affirm, or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Please proceed. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa Cooksey, and I am honored to serve as the president and CEO of the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis. We are located at 6128 Delmar, and our zip code is 63112.
Thank you. Your time begins now.
Thank you. It is imperative that the elected leaders of St. Louis City affirm the enduring civic appeal and economic impact of arts and culture. As requested in October of 2021, we need a direct line item allocation of 5% of ARPA funds for our recovery from severe pandemic-related revenue loss. Before the pandemic, our sector generated more than $600 million in revenue, 19,000 jobs, and had 15,000 working artists. RAC is the city's arts agency that was formed in 1985 to provide consistent and sustained grants and programs to artists and arts organizations. We are the only funder with the history, experience, and infrastructure to fund working artists. We also provide general operating support to organizations. I often liken our work to that of Ameren. When we are at our best, we are trustworthy, well-run, and quietly power the arts and culture sector. In a matter of months, RAC lost more than 60% of its primary revenue source. While things are better today than they were in March of 2020, hotel motel sales tax revenue will take 3 to 4 more years to reach pre-pandemic levels. We need revenue replacement funds from ARPA right away. As humans, we need to interact socially, learn new things, and feel personally creative. This dwells at the heart of our sense of belonging and civic pride. During a protracted period of COVID-related shutdowns that started in 2020, arts organizations hopped into action to ensure residents of all ages and stages were able to safely gather and create even at a greater expense to their operations. With many of the original federal financial supports like PPP loans and shuttered venues gone, our artists and arts organizations are facing even more economic hardship this fiscal year as
1
they
minute left.
produce for lower audiences. Consider this: arts and culture reaches every St. Louis resident via radio, TV, concerts, museums, and has the power to change public life and decisions. On behalf of the Commission and arts leaders and citizens, I implore this 5% allocations for our 4 core grant programs for artists and arts organizations. RAC's vision is a full creative life for every St. Louisan, and we have the technology and talent to distribute the funds quickly and equitably, and we need your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Next up is Mr. Mark Kavanaugh. You're on mute, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Sorry, I thought y'all were unmuting. Sorry.
There you go. No problem.
Uh,
Mr. Kavanaugh, do you promise, swear, or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, so help me God.
Okay. Go ahead and state your name and your organization you're representing, and then your time is going to start, okay?
Okay, my name is Mark Kavanaugh. I am the administrator of local ASME 410, representing the city employees today.
Time now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the Urban Development and Zoning Committee and other alder and aldermen and alderwomen. As you heard who I am, I'm also speaking on the behalf of approximately 300 city frontline workers on this bill 82. And this fund should be spent on them, along with all the other great ideas you're hearing today. ASME Local 410 workers have been on the front lines throughout the pandemic. From the start and continuing even through today is exactly why I'm here speaking on their behalf. These are jobs that must get done, from the refuge collection to maintenance of the airport, then making sure that the water stays flowing. Plus, they're even working with the incarcerated youth and their families. These workers are doing jobs even while short-staffed, and they can't just shut down and go home. These workers are working in hazardous situations, from dealing with the public and picking up trash and other items thrown out that could be infected with COVID, all during the pandemic. The fact is that we're here talking today about the ARP funds and what you've already received, about half some 439 million that you're allocated for, and the rest will be coming in around May or June. So I'm here to request that the ARP funds in part be used to give ASME Local 410 city employees a hazard duty bonus of $5,000 per employee for being the frontline workers and keeping the great city of St. Louis up and running all during this time, and all the fact that these prospective departments had to keep running.
1 minute left.
Doing this so while the pandemic affecting many people in St. Louis, to include some of them. These same departments have stated that they are working short-staffed and point out that they have to work overtime to accomplish the mission. So there has been established bonuses for new hires, but there hasn't been anything given to the people that has actually been staying here and working all through this. So I'm also requesting that the ARP funds in part be used to ASME Local 410 city employees retention bonus of $2,000 employees to help retain workers they should have, that should be rewarded for staying here during the pandemic, as well as new hires getting a bonus. Both of these fall under the allowable expenditures of the ARP funds, and you can do this and get it done even before this current session ends. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. Next up is Ms. Arthurine Harris. Ms. Arthurine Harris.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
Ms. Harris, do you promise to swear, affirm or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Oh, please proceed. State your name, the 100 block you live on.
Arthur Harris, and I am from the 1400 block of Arlington.
Okay, your time starts now.
Okay. As a member of the Citizen Advisory on Capital Committee, under no delusion of democracy, history shows that little to no public input will be taken into consideration before the passage of this bill, and I expect today to be no different. I'm simply speaking here for and to the record. With that being said, I just only have a few concerns about what you refer to as Board Bill 82, but what I call Blank Bill 82, because there's nothing in it, it's just blank lines. How much money goes to the Affordable Housing Commission, SLDC, Slate, Department of Health? Why do we have so many blank lines? And why are we asked to make a decision based off of blanks? What or who is comprised of the office of the president of the Board of Public Service? I've never heard of that office prior to this bill. Why do they get so much power over issues that impact the city at large? How much money does Slate get? How much money does the Department of Public Health get? My major concern, my biggest concern, where is the constituent input, right? According to the bill, only the directors of each respective entity, which is Slate, Department of Public Health, et cetera, and the executive director of SLDC, et cetera, have complete authority over how much funds are spent and how the funds are spent that they receive. So that's one person essentially in control over millions of dollars. That don't really make a lot of sense to me. With this method, there's no way of ensuring that the funds will actually reach the people who are most impacted, right? Nor the specific areas most impacted. Specifically, health, mental health, physical, psychological, and financial, loss of jobs, increased hospital bills, debt, loss of wages, et cetera, stemming directly from the pandemic. Not knowing how each director or executive director will allocate the funds, how can we then in good faith claim to be viewing the dispersal of ARPA funds through a racial equity lens, which is what we are supposed to be doing? That is the whole point of this. How can we as constituents hold said directors and executive directors accountable to minority-owned businesses and contractors for services that will be rendered, or even majority Black neighborhoods, right? The neighborhoods that have already been suffering, as one alderperson has already stated. Where is the transparency and why so many blanks? Thank you.
You know what, Ms. Harris, I'm gonna give you another minute because I want to make sure you are clear on what we're doing. If you had your wish, where would you like to see money allocated to benefit your quality of life? I'm gonna give you a minute and a half. Can you do that?
Yes.
Time starts
I
now.
don't even need that. I don't need a minute and a half. I want the people to have more public input. This is not about Arthur and Harris. Thank you for asking that, Jeffrey. I appreciate that. This is not about what me, one person, one citizen of the city of St. Louis wants. It's about what the people want. And right now, we don't have enough public input because we don't even have enough to tell the public to be able to make educated decision on. We have blank lines and we're asking people, do you approve of this? Do you approve of giving this one person blank millions of dollars for their department? We don't know what their plans for the money is. We have no clue. We just are saying, do you want one person to have this much money? So to answer your question, I think that we need more citizen input. So you can ask that question to the citizens of St. Louis in however way you see best fit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me also clarify something for everybody else who's going to speak. Please understand that there are conversations that have been going on in board meetings with constituents. That's at a micro level. Now, there has been a broader macro level of public input a year ago. So public engagement, public input is important. Today's public input is on the board bill. We're looking at, putting some meat on it. I understand that there's some blanks in there, but we're looking for suggestions on how to best spend the money to elevate the quality of life for people in our community, in the whole city of St. Louis. So again, this is Public Input Day. We'll take comments from people. We'll work on putting something together to spend the $39 million and possibly pass a board bill out on Thursday. But again, I am committed to having more of these same type of meetings while we're out of session to have more public engagement. So I'm committed to that. So I want to make sure that, you know, people put their comments toward what they would like to see. See, public engagement is about you, and it's about us collectively as a community. What's important to me is not the same for Alderwoman Rice. What is important for her may not be the same for Alderwoman Davis, but their input matters. And no one person, you know, from a block should speak for everybody on the block if they haven't really gotten together to talk about that, you know. So talk about from where you are and where you would like to see this money allocated, just like Ms. Cooksey, Mr. Kavanaugh, okay? I'm hoping I'm making it a little bit more clear, because I don't want people just challenging the blank board bill. You know, tell me what you think should be in the board bill to help our constituents across the city, okay? Moving on, Ms. Carissa Gilman Hernandez. Ms. Hernandez.
Hi, I'm here. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Hernandez, good morning. Do you promise, swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, again, go ahead and state your name, the 100 block you live on, and then the time will start, okay?
My name is Carissa Gilman Hernandez. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm the 15th Ward Democratic Committee woman and live on the 4500 block at the Lozan Avenue.
Thank you. You may continue. Your time starts now.
Thanks. So hearing an explanation that the full monies are not going to be allocated, and we're only talking about 40 million at the beginning of a meeting that was not clearly advertised, does not instill confidence in me that this is a well-managed process. I had to rewrite my testimony while everything else was happening. Further, this hearing is really reminiscent of when we were doing hearings about the boundaries of the new corridor, the new wards. I testified twice and it felt like speaking to a brick wall. There were very few questions answered. At one point, an alderman was literally said, "Oh, I'll call her to give her the answers to everything she asked." I had the same questions. Why wasn't that said out loud? You scheduled a poorly advertised hearing at 9 a.m. on a work day. I am going to have to work late this evening to ensure that I meet all my hours so I could be here. And what you're really doing is making clear who isn't invited to speak today. Teachers can't be here today. People who work general childcare, people whose bosses won't let them work an hour late, people in the restaurants. I won't go on that. You're talking about how you want suggestions for how to spend 40 million on this. I don't know what the parameters are. I don't understand what the money has already been allocated to. I don't know how that money is going. So if you really want to engage with people and have a conversation, I do have suggestions about moving forward. We should be doing town halls where there is a clear explanation of where the money has already been allocated to, why it was allocated there, and what the rest of the money can be used for. Other pertinent information, I appreciated Alderwoman Martin talking about where the ward capital is in other locations, what the grant money and what potential infrastructure money could be coming down the pipeline. And then listen to what people have to say. You're asking for us to come out of like nowhere with this. Further, a clear dashboard on the city's website should have all this pertinent information around the funds and information on how to get involved. I'd like you all to just ask yourselves, what systems could have made St. Louis safer during this pandemic? And then use the money to get those systems in place. Thank you.
And thank you. Next up is Mr. George Norris. Mr. Norris. Madam Clerk, do you see Mr. Norris?
I'm looking.
Okay. We'll move on and come back. Next is Mr. Ben Maybe. Is Mr.
Hello,
Maybe?
good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Okay. Good morning. We can. Mr. Maybe, do you promise, affirm, or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, thank you.
Okay, go ahead and state your name, the 100 block you live on, and your time will start.
Hi, my name is Ben Manson. I live on the 4700 block of Atkins down in Bevo.
Wait a minute, hold up. Your name is what?
Ben Manson. It's an online, it didn't fill in correctly.
Okay, Manson. Spell that for me, please.
Manson. It should be the one that it was submitted under.
It has your email BENJEL, start with that?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's the one.
Okay. It had you down as maybe. That's why. And you
Yeah, it's my
listed on
Google
here.
account.
That's
I
why
apologize.
I called you maybe. I'm sorry. So I want to correct.
No, I
that.
understand. It's what I have written here.
Okay. All right. So start over for me.
Sure. My name is Ben Manson from the 4700 block of Atkins down in Bevo.
Okay. Your time starts now.
Sure. I appreciate what you've said about you wouldn't like everyone to challenge the bill, but I'm afraid that's the purpose of this meeting that you called. And while I appreciate that you've been trying to funnel it in this very positive direction, ultimately you've called us all here to vote on a blank sheet. And I don't understand how we're supposed to do that both ways, especially when this meeting was announced 3 days ago at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. As a few other members have mentioned, like, who are you seeking input from? People who can simply get off work in the middle of the day on a weekday? Because there are shift workers and everybody else who live in the city, a vast majority of the city, that you're going to be seeking zero input from. And I couldn't possibly hope to represent all of them, but I'm certain what they're looking for in the city isn't more sweepers. And to be frank, it's a bit insulting that it's been a year of diligent work since this has been proposed a year ago, and we have 9 blanks with no sort of line items, no elements of accountability, no budget outlines. I'm not sure what's been done for a year, and it seems like unless it was noticed, it would have been voted on. So, like, I'm just confused how it's been a year and we're at the brainstorming phase, and you're assuring us that you're not about to take a vote. I'm not really sure what else to say beyond that, except that community engagement is excellent, but that's not what you're here to offer us. It's a civic duty that we are the controllers of the money that we have paid into this. So it's not, I appreciate you pandering to the element of engagement, but that's not what we're here seeking. We're here seeking control over our funds to disperse them to our city. Like our sewer bills, which have more than septupled in the 8 years that I've lived here, but it still smells like a sewer when I walk down my city street. And when you look at the outline of where these projects have been put, it's a big void in the center of St. Louis. Yet the third element of ARPA funds is supposed to be for infrastructure. I don't understand why we're talking about arts when we still have these huge infrastructure problems. We have frontline people that aren't being paid. We should disperse it down the line, but these aren't ARPA fund elements. And I don't know why we're still at the brainstorming phase a year later with a big blank bill that you don't want us to challenge, because that's what you called the meeting to do in the middle of a workday. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me set another set of ground rules. I think it's very important that we all be respectful to other people's opinions. It's not nice. I mean, if somebody wants street sweepers, if somebody wants dumpsters, that's their opinion, and they have a right to that opinion. So I'm gonna tell you, if anybody else disrespects somebody's opinion, I'm gonna say stop. Because I'm not going to tolerate disrespect of anybody who's testifying or any member of this Board of Aldermen. And I really hope that I'm clear. Next up is Emma Crocker.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Emma Crocker. I live on.
Wait a minute, Ms. Crocker. Let me just go ahead and swear you in, okay?
Okay.
Do you promise, affirm, or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Dr. Emma Crocker. I live on 5400 Bancroft. I agree that.
Time starts now. Go ahead.
Got it. I agree with what I think it was Carissa and Authorizing have said. Both have been very well spoken, and I agree that it is a blank bill. It is very confusing. I'm confused as to how this process is going. I'm confused at how public hearing and testimony is supposed to go with all this. I actually had to change my testimony as well, as Carissa had said. And I truly, as a public health, population health person in the St. Louis community who serves most of our, or a lot of our community members, and I'm a community member myself. I've lived here more than half of my life. I feel like more community input is necessary to ensure we put the health and wellness of our community first and foremost. And I would say that putting public health and wellness and putting funding into that and ensuring that that's part of that is community input. Part of that is ensuring more community input, and part of that is ensuring transparency and ensuring that the community understands what's going on. And I can say that if, the community is confused, that's not good enough. And we all need to be, educated along this process, and we all need to be comfortable with this process. And right now, it feels like the community is not. So I would say allocating funding to public health and population health and wellness of this community, and ensuring that more input is necessary, because that's part of that. So thank you.
And thank you so much for your input. Next up is, well, hope I say this right, Yitzi Simon.
You said it perfect.
All right. Mr. Simon, do you promise or affirm or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
I live in the 2900 block of Chippewa.
Okay, go ahead and, for the record, go ahead and state your name and then your address again, and then your time's going to start when I say, okay?
My name is Yitzi Simon, and I live in the 2900 block of Chippewa.
Okay, time starts now. Thank you.
I could give suggestions about how we can spend this money, but that seems to be the confusion, that we all came onto this meeting with other things to say, and then all of a sudden we were told that we were supposed to be giving suggestions on how this money should be spent. I have a couple of questions. You started off by saying that the board felt left out, and that's why you're doing this. It's not about the board, it's about the people. And the whole nature of ARPA funds, oops, sorry, somebody's calling me, 1 second. We were given until 2024 to allocate the funds, and we were given until 2026 to spend the funds. The reason that we got such a long time is because we're not supposed to rush these things. The federal government doesn't want these things rushed. We already used the first half of our funding for immediate needs, and we've barely seen any of that money actually given out, and it's been almost a year. I work in homeless services. We had a lot of money and a lot of discussion around homeless services, and not one project is currently operational in the large scheme. Maybe some small things were done with it, but nothing large. So I think that putting a board bill right before the end of our session with blank, as everybody else said, blank lines does nothing to serve the public. And everybody feels like this is serving the Board of Aldermen. And I feel that way too, because that's kind of what you said in the beginning. Other points, if you want to talk about allocating funding, is a lot of the bills for homeless services are only enough to build the building and then fund it for a year. But can we continue to fund these projects afterwards? We could barely fund the current projects. Are we taking climate into account? Are we making sure that our infrastructure is for everyone? Yeah, those are some things that we need to take in mind if we're going to be spending this money. But I have more concerns about the process that we're using. We already have a portal on the city's website that deals with ARPA funds, and just why is this process being done differently than last time? Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Andrew Gribbett.
Yes, that's me.
Okay, Mr. Gribbett, do you promise, affirm, or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, state your name for the record again and the 100 block you live on.
My name is Andrew Gribbett, and I'm a constituent of Sarah Martin. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I live on the 3100 block of Jodos Bluff Drive.
Thank you. Your time starts now.
I am concerned that there has not been enough opportunity for public comment on the remaining $250 million in funding from the American Rescue Plan. However, I am glad to hear that that you plan to hold more input meetings while you're out of session. I hope that future meetings are at a different time and day to accommodate different schedules, and that there is more advance notice, at least 2 weeks in advance. I think 3 days was rough, and I only heard about it, I think, half an hour before the deadline to sign up to speak yesterday. So that it's easier to prepare. The Board of Aldermen promised to run their own community engagement process when they shut down the Stimulus Advisory Board. So it is important that the Board of Aldermen follow through on that commitment. One public input session is definitely not enough, and it is not what we were promised. An increasing number of Americans are factoring in internet service costs and access when considering where to move. In order to retain and attract new residents, small cities across the country have created their own municipal broadband service. Marshall, Missouri, a small city, was able to, smaller than ours at least, was able to create a municipal internet service. If they can do it, so can we. Despite large upfront costs, a 2018 study by the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University found that most most community-owned fiber-to-the-home networks charged less and offered prices that were clear and unchanging, whereas private ISPs typically charged initial low promotional or teaser rates that later sharply rose, usually after 12 months. In a time where cost of living is increasing, this is one area which could help citizens control their household budgets. For me personally, my current download speed is adequate for my online business teaching virtual music lessons, but the upload speed is just 5% of my download speed. This makes uploading videos to YouTube or anything to cloud storage excruciatingly slow.
1 minute left.
Thank you. And it limits the video and sound quality my clients can get from my streaming video. My personal trainer also uses video streaming for some of his sessions, and my mother uses Zoom throughout the day for her IT job. This is a very common use case. Broadband fiber internet, specifically fiber, for cheaper than private internet would be a boon for home users and for businesses looking to move into the area. We should not let this opportunity of windfall pass us by. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Next up is Yani Blumberg.
Hello.
Okay, Mr. Blumberg, do you promise, swear, or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, for the record, please state your name, the 100 block you live on, and then I will give you the time, okay?
Yes, my name's Yani Blumberg. I live on the 4000 block of Russell Boulevard.
Time starts now.
Great, thank you. As others have said, I really think it's important that we have a more inclusive process to build buy-in and get broader input and make sure that we're making strategic decisions that align with the top needs of our city. I think it's great to hear that you as the chair are committed to having more hearings out of session to keep the process moving. From my perspective, this is a huge amount of money, well beyond our normal budget, and it's critical that the process is beyond the ordinary process of Board of Aldermen hearings. I would like to see something more similar to the process that the Ferguson Commission used to get input from as many residents as possible. I truly believe if people are able to weigh in on the process, especially people who aren't typically included, have never been to a Board of Aldermen meeting, which is the vast majority of the people who live in the city, they'll feel more buy-in and ownership and support for the results of the process. And as Alderman Stevens said, not be upset and remember who they're mad at, but instead be happy with the outcomes. So I hope we have a much bigger pool of everyday people. We give a much bigger pool of everyday people a chance to rank priorities and trade-offs. I think ward meetings are good. I also know not everyone can go to those, and I think they're really insufficient. As others have said, I think we need well-advertised town halls at different times of day with specifically activities that help constituents understand the trade-offs at hand. As I also understand you're asking for specific recommendations for the $40-ish million and this next chunk. It's really hard to engage with that request without clarity on trade-offs. For instance, I have no idea how much money we need for tow trucks, for rec centers, for repairing streets, let alone anything else. So I think in designing these town halls, it's important that we make this kind of these decisions and the trade-offs they involve clearer for everyday people to engage and share their input. And then I also want to touch on this point around the Stimulus Advisory Committee. As a constituent, I really liked that process. I felt that group was doing a good job of getting broad public input, thinking strategically about trade-offs. It felt transparent and easier to follow than typical Board of
1 minute
Aldermen
left.
processes. Thank you. I also understand that the board didn't feel included in that process. And I think that process was explicitly focused on immediate needs. And while it's of course important to meet immediate needs, and we have many of them, I also think it's important we use this second chunk of money and perhaps the remaining $40 million that you're working on this week to address long-term issues and root causes of those issues so that we can feel the benefits of this investment for decades to come. And so I hope that with the 40 million that's on the table this week, we can allocate a tiny fraction of that to run a much more inclusive process, engaging firms that have experience doing that and doing that work well. And lastly, I just want to close by echoing the question Carissa Gilman-Hernandez raised earlier around what systems could have made St. Louis and St. Louisans safer. I think it's critical we have framing questions like that guiding the process.
3 minutes.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Blumberg. Next up is Ms. Kayla Reed.
Good morning.
Good morning. Ms. Reed, are you here representing an organization or yourself?
An organization.
Okay, so state your name again, the organization, and where the organization is located.
Great. My name is Kayla Reed. I'm the Executive Director of Action St. Louis. We're located at 1000 North Vandervetter.
Okay, your time's, oh, I'm sorry, did I swear you in? No, I didn't. I should have swore you in. Do you promise or swear that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please begin.
Thank you. I am testifying this morning because with the direct ask that we not pass any more ARPA bills and that we not rush the process of spending $40 million in a week when community has not had adequate time to respond to the actual bill. If we pass something out of committee this week, that would limit the amount of time that community members could get in touch with their alders to voice their concerns and show up if there's a potential second hearing, which I hope there is once line items are introduced into this piece of legislation. And I hope that we hear the cries from all the folks who testified today, that we really do have a chance to create a transformative, inclusive, and participatory process around spending ARPA money. We've already allocated more than $200 million of the first dispersal of ARPA money, and we should take time to look at the data to see if we've had the significant impact we were hoping to have before we allocate any more resources. These resources are once in a lifetime. I understand the calls for services and infrastructure. I'd add to that list that we have environmental justice needs in our community, that there is a demand and need for citywide broadband access, and that more than a year ago, 50 organizations came together to release a policy platform called the People's Plan, which includes demands around expanding the Affordable Housing Trust, jobs and training, and different sources of investment in our transportation systems in St. Louis. With COVID rates going down and the mask mandate not being renewed, we do have the opportunity to use the break and the next session to hold in-person community meetings, to do significant turnout for those meetings, and to elicit community feedback before spending another dollar. We have time, and my ask today is that we wait and are patient so that we can have the greatest and highest use of these resources to be transformative for our communities. Anything that
1 minute left.
Thank you so much. Anything that is rushed will likely miss something, and we won't get a second chance to redo this. So I am asking you, Alderman Boyd, and the members of this committee to huddle and really press pause on this so that the community can come into this conversation more robustly, and that we can spend these resources in the best way possible. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
And thank you. Next up is Mr. Richard Von Glahn, I think.
Yep, you pronounced that correctly.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderman. And my name is Richard Von Glahn. I am testifying on behalf of Missouri Jobs with Justice, where I am the policy director. Missouri Jobs with Justice office is at 2725 Clifton, 63139, the Clifton Heights neighborhood.
Okay, Mr. Klein, you promise or affirm or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed, 3 minutes.
Thank you, and good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. As mentioned, my name is Richard Von Glahn. I'm the Policy Director for Missouri Jobs with Justice. We are a coalition of over 100 labor, community, faith, and student groups, as well as thousands of activists who fight for an economy and a democracy that works for working class Missourians. Last summer, I was part of the original Stimulus Advisory Board that proposed recommendations to the mayor and to the Board of Aldermen on immediate direct relief that was needed by the residents of St. Louis City. I was most directly involved in the proposal for direct cash assistance, a proposal that I think was probably one of the most scrutinized, but I have come to believe also one of the most successful. During the last 2 weeks, I and other members of our team have been in conversations with the recipients of the direct cash assistance. Their stories have reaffirmed my strongly held belief that what working people in Missouri need is less judgment and more support. While the stories are perhaps not attention grabbing, most recipients spent the assistance on catching up on utility bills, food, or clothes. Some of the conversations have been truly uplifting. One woman told me how the assistance affected her emotionally, knowing that people cared enough about her to directly invest in her. Another woman I spoke with talked about the pride she had in making a nicer Christmas dinner for her children, parents, and grandparents for the first time. Another woman spoke about how her children asked her how she could possibly have been able to afford properly sized shoes for them the first time for 2 growing boys. These stories are probably not thinking that people who don't live on the margins think about. We take it for granted, but they were really wonderful to hear and understand, and the impact that that money had. One thing that has been consistent across my conversations is the need to reinvest and expand this program.
1 minute left.
Recipients of the assistance know others who could use the help, but beyond just the expansion of the program, think what it would mean if we actually invited some of the initial recipients in to help design an expansion of the program. What could that mean to not just invest in those residents materially, but to engage and invest in their leadership and their judgment? I believe such an action would have profound and perhaps transformative impact on their lives and how we do business here in St. Louis. Hearing now that the request is not necessarily about how the bill is drafted, but ideas about how to spend the remaining dollars, I will close by saying that I'm happy to be of assistance to the Board of Aldermen in recruiting recipients of the direct cash program to engage in the discussion and debate. I think their voices are critical. I will add that the legislative process can sometimes feel a bit wonky to people. It's, as others have said, it's during the workday, it's using technology that everyone might not have. And so it should not be the only way to engage in this process. And I hope and trust that we can have a process that engages these voices.
Thank you for your input. I appreciate it. Next up is Nava Cantor.
Hi.
Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay. Ms. Cantor, do you promise or affirm that the testimony you got to give the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and again state your name and your 100 block where you live for the record.
My name is Nava Cantor. I live on the 4000 block of Russell.
And you may begin now.
I work at a philanthropic organization that takes great pains to carefully assess community needs with data and with community input to inform how we can strategically deploy our funds. And I would expect that our city government would take the same pains and careful process to do the same with this enormous, amazing influx of funds. So I just want to say we need a process that combines data and community input to understand where our biggest challenges are, and so we can deploy the funds to meet those challenges. And I just hope that this process will focus on how these funds can change things at a systems level so that things are different moving forward in a sustainable way. Thank you.
And thank you. Next up is Chris Rabine. I doubt if I got that right.
Yeah, you got it right. Good job.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you promise us, swear me that testimony you about to give us the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, I promise.
Okay, so go ahead again for the record. State your name and the 100 block you live on.
My name's Chris Rabine. Right now I'm on the 9500 block of Mcgowan Lane. I know. But I was on
500 block of what? I'm sorry.
The 95 block of Margot Ann, but I'm speaking for the 4900 block of Genevieve.
Okay, 4900 block of Genevieve. Go ahead.
Hey, my name's Chris. My grandfather, my family was in community service. We did school boards in Walnut Park. I can't tell you just how it makes you feel growing up as a kid and walking down and there's tons of broken sidewalks and trash everywhere. It's such a marked difference between walking in a different part of the city. I hear a lot of people talking about infrastructure. That's great. I wholly support it. I'm very cognizant of the fact that people my age are going to have to pay for and subsidize a lot of different things that have been put off for decades. Oh, and really quick, I promised myself I would say that Mary Collins, your secretary, is just the nicest person in the world. She was so nice on the phone. I don't know. Some other questions that other people have asked me to ask you all. What kind of structural changes will the board be aiming to make with this money? And how can we avoid pitfalls of half-measure solutions and silver bullets to ensure the money's primarily used for permanently transformative work? I just want to say thank you to the rest of you that talk about infrastructure and the unhoused. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up is Miss Kelly Mcgowan.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Okay, Miss Mcgowan, good morning. Looks like you represent the organization. So for the record, go ahead and again state your name, the organization, and the address of the organization. And then I'll swear you, okay?
Okay, sounds good. I'm Kelly Mcgowan. The organization I'm representing is Evolve, Elevating Voices of Leaders Vying for Equity. And where I work is where I reside, which is the 3900 block of Westminster.
Westminster. Okay, let's go on. Do you promise us or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed. 3 minutes now.
Okay, good morning. I'm speaking as a resident of the 18th Ward, a health equity advocate, and the director of Built Environment Advocacy for the entity Evolve, which is an acronym for Elevating Voices of Leaders Vying for Equity. In this role, I work with fellow St. Louisans, making sure that we are included in the processes that shape how our communities are designed. I'm here to discuss the potential that Board Bill 82 has to transform our city's food system, as well as the way our city engages with its residents. Communities on the north and west side are food swamps, meaning they have an overabundance of fast food restaurants and corner stores selling fried and processed foods and little to no presence of food retail with healthier items. This has serious implications for the health and well-being of residents. Excuse me. Circling back to the topic of discussion, as far as how ARPA funding can be utilized. Why not invest it in our food system? There are a lot of things happening in this space. For starters, Evolve has a free resource called the Food Audit Toolkit. This resource not only supports communities in assessing their food environments, but Evolve also provides technical assistance to help communities develop and implement solutions that benefit all community stakeholders regarding increasing access to healthy food retail. Aside from Evolve's efforts, the Health Department is a recent recipient of the CDC's Social Determinants of Health grant funding that will support the development of a shovel-ready plan to address food inequities in the city of St. Louis. This process, from what I've been told, will be driven by working with a variety of stakeholders, including our city's Black growers and farmers. Once this plan is developed, can ARPA funding support any parts of its implementation? Another item I wanted to address is the manner in which our city's elected leadership engages its constituents in the processes that impact our communities. I view the appropriation of the second installment of ARPA funding as an opportunity to lay a foundation on how the city of St. Louis can intentionally engage and include its residents' feedback when making such important decisions. Currently, Evolve is partnering with St. Louis County on its efforts to engage county residents on how their remaining ARPA dollars should be spent. Through our Closed Mouths Don't Get Fed campaign, we are partnering with residents and other county, stakeholders to ensure their voices are heard and prioritized in the spending of St. Louis County's remaining ARPA funding. Hopefully you take this opportunity to meaningfully engage our communities. There's a lot of confusion right now. Walk us through what ARPA is, what the parameters are of how the funding can be spent, what this process entails, as well as how the funding has already been spent. Take the time to do this right, and that goes beyond this platform. Evolve, as well as other community-based entities such as the Hood Talks podcast, are more than willing to partner with you to do just that. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning and hope we can collaborate to make this happen.
And thank you so much for your participation. Next up is Michael Browning.
Yes, hello.
Okay, and Mr. Browning, go ahead and state your name and the 100 block you live on. I'll go ahead and swear you in.
Good morning. My name is Michael Browning, and I live on the 4400 block of Oakland Avenue.
Oakland?
Oakland, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Browning, do you promise or swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please proceed. You have 3 minutes now.
All right, thank you. I am relieved to hear you say that you're slowing the process down, that you're committed to additional hearings. That needs to be a priority. Artificially short deadlines produce unnecessarily messy results, and it hurts our city when we waste money by allocating it quickly and without much planning. Please give this the time and care it deserves. I think we would all love to watch the board thoughtfully allocate these funds with the public's input over an appropriate timeline. But today, we're all just the people who are able to step away from work on a Tuesday morning so that we could come address this committee. And it feels rushed, even for the smaller amount of $40 million. Like others have said, I had to rewrite my testimony during this meeting to respond to this new plan, except there still isn't actually a plan. I feel forced to pick a handful of issues as a non-expert. Very few of us can give you meaningful feedback on a blank bill today, but you're hearing one thing over and over and over again. And so I'm just going to echo what others have said. Please hit pause and give yourself the time to get this right.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up is Wally Seward.
That's right.
Okay, Mr. Seward, go ahead again, for the record, state your name, the 100 block you live on. I'll go ahead and swear you in.
My name's Wally Seward. I live on the 2800 block of Louisiana Avenue.
Thank you. Do you promise or affirm or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed. You have 3 minutes now.
Thank you, Chairman Boyd. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to testify here today. And I want to thank you for the decision already to slow this process down. As a public ethicist, people think I spend most of my time telling politicians what to do. It's actually the opposite. I spend most of my time trying to convince non-politician human beings how hard being a politician actually is. So I want to also acknowledge the political service that you all serve here, and how hard it is to actually make the decisions that allow us all to live together in community. So thank you. That being said, these decisions are incredibly important, and I know how hard they are to make. So it is somewhat alarming to me that the decision to move from spending $250 million to spending around $40 million seems to have happened in your head, Chairman Boyd, sometime over the course of the weekend without anybody else's knowledge or input, when you said on Thursday you were planning on spending the whole $250 million. The decision to not spend $200 million right now, I think is a good one. I also think it seems to have happened very quickly, arbitrarily, and inside of someone's head where no reasons seem to have been given or talked about. I want to also say that I agree with a lot of the points made by some of the aldermen at the opening of this meeting. Alderman Cohn, I couldn't agree more that we need to start spending money where we have not been spending it previously. I was one of 2 appointed co-chairs of the Mayor's Stimulus Advisory Board. I also served on the Capital Advisory Committee. I sat through tens of hours of pictures of rusted bridges and buildings and elevators and electric panels from the 1950s. I see all of those needs. However, number one, what I'm hearing here is that 1 minute, you said?
Yes.
Thank you. What I'm hearing here is that you're saying you're using the Stimulus Advisory Board's process as a backbone for this. We haven't had any requests for that data. We would love to give you that input and public, and so please. Number two, the criteria for how we spend money on capital infrastructure in this city is the same criteria that we've been using for 50 years. There is a set of guidelines that, if we don't look at those from an equity lens, are going to have us spending money in the exact same places that we have for the past 50 years, and we're going to get the result. Finally, what to spend on right now? Number one, administrative dollars for the city. These dollars that we've already appropriated aren't getting out to people because the capacity isn't there. That was the one thing you cut from the Stimulus Advisory Board's plan, is the actual money to implement the things that were in the plan. Number two, outreach for this process. Community engagement doesn't have to be this kind of torturous hours-long testimony where you don't answer any questions and you only respond when you want to correct the record or set some ground rules, and no one can force you to respond to something you don't want to.
Thank you for your input, sir. Appreciate it. And appreciate all the work you've been doing on this process. Next up is Anissa McCaskill.
Sorry about that. I'm having trouble getting my camera on. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Ms. McCaskill, go ahead for the record, state your name. And are you representing yourself or an organization?
I'm representing an organization.
Okay, so state your name, the organization, and the address.
My name is Anissa McCaskill. I'm Executive Director of Dutchtown South Community Corporation, located at 4204 Virginia. We represent the neighborhoods of Dutchtown, Marine Villa, Mount Pleasant, and Grabway Park.
Thank you. Ms. McCaskill, do you promise, affirm, or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please proceed. You have 3 minutes right now.
Thank you to the chair, committee members, and all the friends who have spoken before me. First, I want to reiterate that, like many of the other speakers, I did change my comments because I don't know whether we didn't understand the assignment or the assignment wasn't given, but I'm here because we service roughly just under 10% of the city of St. Louis's population. And we support the city in seeking and utilizing ARPA funds, but we have concerns regarding this process, the speed of it, as well as the ability to give input or gather input from the constituents in which we serve. One of our concerns is the disbursement and the discussion of funds prior to actually having them in the bank. It's just me being conservative, the concern regarding whether or not we actually will be able to utilize the funds in the way that we're saying when we don't actually have them yet. We're being asked to prioritize decision-making and giving ideas regarding this, but I can just give you some. I don't have an ask. I don't have a number or percentage that should be given to us, but I can tell you what our needs are and what we're hearing from our partners. There is a need for the expansion of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. There's an exodus of families from St. Louis City because there are not affordable multifamily housing available to them. And the Affordable Housing Trust Fund has been crucial for the creation of those opportunities for a cross section of our community, whether it be veterans, senior citizens, and we're calling on those opportunities to now be afforded on an expanded basis to families. There's a need to address issues of environmental justice in the city. We specifically deal with dumping, lead in homes, lead remediation in homes, and the availability of funds to do that for constituents. We talk about that for new developments, but no one is addressing how that happens with individuals in their homes who want to improve their quality of life, but are dealing with lead pipes and possibly poisoning of their families.
1 minute left.
Thank you. I just want to say that we don't have an ask. We urge a more rigorous opportunity for the public to comment, and we're here to assist in whatever that process may be to allow for that. But we do urge more transparency as we move forward for the disbursement and the utilization of these funds. And we thank the committee for this opportunity, as well as the hard work that they are doing.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the work that you do. I know being an ED is not an easy task. So thank you for your community involvement. Next up is Ms. Inez Bordeaux.
I'm here.
Okay, Ms. Bordeaux, are you representing the organization or are you representing yourself?
I am representing myself.
Okay, so go ahead, state your name, the 100 block you live on, and then I'll give you, I'll swear you in, okay?
Okay. My name is Inez Bordeaux. I'm the committee woman for the 9th Ward. I live at the 4200 block of Oregon.
Okay, Ms. Bordeaux, do you promise, affirm, or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed. You have 3 minutes now.
Thank you. I'm here today because I'm concerned, like many others, about the process being used to, allocate millions of dollars in ARPA money, scheduling one public hearing at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday to make public comment on a blank bill that will allocate millions of dollars with a planned vote 2 days later is madness. So I'm ecstatic to hear from the chair that the process is going to be slowed down and much more public input is going to be invited, because honestly, I was prepared to raise hell about it. And I have a feeling that it's only happening because of public outrage over the weekend. So listen, I like paved roads and LED lights as much as the next girl, but this ARPA money is once in a lifetime money that can and should be transformative for this city, and it must be treated as such. By transformative, I mean this money should be used to help put an end to poverty that so many of our neighbors are experiencing, child hunger that far too many children are living with, education gaps caused by COVID-19, citywide broadband access and violence prevention programs. This is the people's money. I want to repeat that again. This is the people's money. This is not a slush fund to get pet projects off the ground. I'm here because I want this committee to do real public to the people of this city, because what is the rush? We do not have to spend $40 million this week. I want to reiterate, since the money doesn't have to be allocated before the end of the session, so there is more than enough time to do this the right way, in an impactful way, instead of us acting like children whose allowance is burning a hole in our pocket. The people who are struggling and depending on you deserve better than that. The city demands more than that. And as we move through this process, I will continue to demand radical transparency and extensive public input. I look forward to doing this again and as many times as it takes in order to make sure that this process is handled properly, with public input, with care, with compassion, and with transformation in mind. We all deserve it. Thank you.
And thank you for your input. Next up, and the final speaker is Ms. Caroline Fan.
Good morning. Just gonna check that it's still morning. Yes, it's still morning.
Yes, yes, Ms.
I am
Fan.
here speaking on behalf of the Missouri Asian American Youth Foundation, which is a statewide nonprofit. Its address is 222 North Merrimack.
Okay, Ms. Fan, do you promise, affirm, or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You have 3 minutes. Thank you now.
Okay, so I would like to ask the alders to think about when you are getting input from your constituents and from your residents, what language or languages you are getting that input in. How many of the alders speak multiple languages? How many of you have avenues for constituents who do not speak English or do not solely speak English to give you input? I want to echo Carissa's point that this seems slightly, unfortunately, familiar and kind of like the very rushed and hectic redistricting process, which I sat in all the meetings other than the coin toss meeting. I would also like to remind folks that these monies are federal monies and that states, municipalities, and federal monies are subject to Title VI on language access. I'm not going to reiterate all the process things that other people have said, but I agree with many of them. I would like to make some line item suggestions, if we will. I'd like to propose an Office of New Americans. St. Louis is about to have a Latino and Asian American alderman at the same time, I presume, since the city is largely Democratic. But, you know, kind of like during redistricting, there was a distinct othering of the roughly 20% of St. Louis, which is neither and or white and black, right? And so that's highly problematic. I would also like to propose a language access and disability rights coordinator. I think it's important for folks who don't always have broadband or whatever means to access these meetings under the ADA, that they also have access. And there is an overlap between the immigrant and refugee community and the disability community. We applaud Mayor Jones for including 100,000 for, thank you, for translations. But the larger issue is that when people show up at City Hall, they don't really have folks to go to who speak the languages that they speak. I would also like to propose a pipeline for mental health services. Asian American Pacific Islanders, as many communities, have suffered from lack of mental health access. Every year, the Brown School alone graduates something like 20 to 30 Chinese international students who can't get jobs here, who are not welcomed here because there's a perceived lack of need. That's not something our community talks about publicly, but I will tell you that there's a gigantic need, particularly amongst our youth and our elders. And these are points that the president brought up in his speech. I would also like to propose a WPA fund for artists so that artists can help in revitalizing our community and provide us all with some hope in these dark times. And I am also pleased to see that there are so many people on this one. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that wraps up the public input, but we still have aldermen here that have not weighed in. And if any of them want to have some comments, I want to afford them that, like Alderwoman Ingracia.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Alderman Gunther.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just here listening today.
Okay. Don't think I see anyone else. So the goal is to look at allocating the remainder of the ARPA funds. I want to again say that there was a great amount of public engagement last year on how to best spend the ARPA funds. We had robust conversation in a 12-hour marathon meeting on approval of Board Bill number 2, which was the first approval round of the ARPA funds. We just used $69.5 million of ARPA funds. I think 3 weeks ago, we had a hearing. Alderman Blumberg had a bill, and I didn't remember hearing the same discussion today that I heard when $69 million of ARPA funds was being used for capital improvement. I just thought that was interesting. I don't know if anybody else picked up on that, but I certainly picked up on it. And I didn't necessarily agree that the $69 million should have been used ARPA funds. I think they should have been used for something else, but you know, I voted for it. I don't know how much harder I can impress upon our public that we have needs in some of these neighborhoods whereby $1 billion would probably be a drop in the bucket. I enjoy public discourse. Everybody's input matters. We're not going to all agree, but we're all entitled to our own opinions. I want to be very serious about rebuilding St. Louis. And rebuilding St. Louis is, you know, in my mind, it's all of it. It's infrastructure, it's roads, it's bridges, it's housing. How do we grow our population in the city of St. Louis if we don't look at growing our housing opportunities throughout the whole city. I am definitely a affordable housing advocate. I've been a landlord for over 30 years. All my rentals are affordable. And I want people to really just be mindful of what certain parts of the city looks like. And where's your passion for ensuring that those parts of the city gets its fair share? This money is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And there are a lot of organizations that would love to have millions and millions of these dollars. And I support a lot of them. But I am very sincere about our distressed neighborhoods and prioritizing how do we fix these neighborhoods. I'm also mindful of the fact that we're going to get over another 100, hopefully $200 million of unrestricted funds coming from the NFL settlement. What I don't want to do is create a whole lot of infighting on, how to best spend this money. I will hope that we can come to a civil compromise and an understanding of individual needs as a whole, so that this process doesn't become belaboring, doesn't create a lot of animosity, and we can show everybody that the Board of Aldermen can work with the mayor's office. We all have a right to disagree, but we don't have to hate each other, that's for sure. And more opportunities will present themselves down the road. So my goal is this week to look at allocating the $39 million. That's going to happen on Thursday, either up or down, with some recommendations based on the emails that I have received and even some of the comments I've heard today. And with that, unless I'll go around and see if anybody on the committee have any final thoughts, and I'm going to wrap up the meeting. And I'll start with Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say I appreciate those who had the ability to come and testify today. I was truly enlightened by some of the comments that were made and some of the recommendations that were made. And as we move forward, the most important thing is for people to stay engaged. And whether you believe you are being listened to or not, stay engaged, because there are a lot of people who are listening, and you never know who will pick up the mantle on your suggestion and move it forward. So again, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Cone. Alderman Cone? Okay. Alderman Kotar.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate everyone joining today and giving their comments.
Okay. Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
I have no questions, Mr. Chair, and thank you for ensuring that we'll have further meetings for the community to have their input. So I have no questions.
Okay, Alderman John Collins Muhammad.
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Martin.
Hi, I just want to thank everyone for coming. And I just want to clarify, did you say we'd be voting something out on Tuesday, or did I misunderstand that?
There will be something presented on Thursday. I'm sorry if I said Tuesday, I meant Thursday.
And will we be voting on that, or is it just a presentation?
No, it'll be a vote.
Okay.
I hope to get a committee substitute by 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay, so we're still on the same schedule as what from last week? What you said by voting it out on Thursday.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood because I thought we were slowing it down a bit.
We are. Originally, we were going to package more than the 39 million. We were going to exceed that amount. And so I said, let's just go ahead and slow it down. But we've had, I feel, robust conversation over the past year about, the ARPA funds we've been talking about in our communities, from a ward level. And I've agreed that we'll just allocate this small portion that's left over. And again, We just allocated 69 million a few weeks ago, passed out last Friday, I believe, or is it up tomorrow?
I just want to express concern. I just feel like we spend our money in such a siloed way in this city. And I feel like we're just kind of continuing to go down this path when we have an opportunity to really assess, where the needs are. So I just want to express that concern. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Chairman Boyd. Just want to thank everyone who came and spent their time testifying. I understand that we will be taking up this smaller portion on Thursday, but I do hope as we move forward for the larger chunk of these funds, this third round, that we can take some of the feedback that we heard today and try and have more public input, more meetings, and at times, at varied times where, so we can ensure that more members of the community may be able to provide some feedback. And I agree, and I'm not sure what the best way to do this is, but I'd be happy to work with either you, Chairman Boyd, or anyone else on it to provide the public with a little bit of information on the guidelines, because this isn't just a blank check from the government. We do have certain parameters in which we are permitted to spend it, and some of the things that I would frankly love to do, we're just not permitted to do with these funds. And so I think it would be helpful to increase the amount of information that the average person who hasn't had their head in the weeds on the expenditure of these funds for the last few months to really understand how we can spend them, how we cannot spend them. Because the last thing I think anyone wants on this board or in this city is for the federal government to come and claw back these funds at some point in the future. So we do need to make sure that we're spending them appropriately. I think that we are, but I think that the limitations imposed by the government, by the federal government, may be responsible for some of the frustrations that we're hearing today. Certainly not all of them, but if there was a way that we could work together to get that information out to the public, I'd be happy to work with you on that, Chairman.
Sure. Okay, Alderwoman Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate everyone that gave input today. And I push that we continue to have transparency and inclusion in our meetings on the spending of these funds.
Okay. I see you, Alderwoman Rice. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate you're taking the question. There were some comments today about having a town hall versus having a hearing, and I'm thinking back to, I think the last time that this board did more of a town hall function was when we were talking about the airport and the potential privatization there. But we had meetings in different parts of the cities where we actually, we had a panel and we were able to take questions from the public and kind of provide answers. And I'm wondering, I think in the letter from the mayor's office offered some support for a town hall function. And I would love to help facilitate this however I could be useful as well, but bring in the budget director, bring in BPS, some department heads, so that we can have an actual discussion with the public about where the money has already gone. And specifically, let's go into neighborhood spaces, particularly on the north side, bring folks in there so we can have an in-person conversation for folks who aren't technologically able to join us in these meetings, but just to have a more, I guess, back and forth conversation about it. If we're able to do that, I would love to help facilitate that process, and we can include language access like Ms. Fan included as well. So I would love to help with that if there's a possibility for us to go forward. And I think the mayor's office has staff that are able to help with us as well if we can help coordinate that.
Sure. Anybody else before I respond? Okay, thank you. So Thursday, Paul Payne will be available. He was going to be, I was hoping he'd be available today, but unfortunately he was in budget hearings. So we shifted him to Thursday. But my intention when we're out of session is at a minimum have a town hall meeting at O'Fallon Recreation Center and one at a Crown Elect Recreation Center, and maybe one other one somewhere in the middle, somewhere where we can find it. But at least 2 town hall meetings. I am committed to that, as well as, you know, another Zoom call to solicit input. So I'll make sure that happens. All righty. Well, this has been a good day. Again, I do appreciate everybody's input. Again, I you know, there were some ideas that came up that I said, hey, that's a good idea. So with that, I'm going to consider the Housing, Urban Development and Zoning Committee for March the 8th, 2022 adjourned. Thank you, everybody.